Well, good morning, everyone. Once again, welcome to another Tuesday morning edition, Facebook Live from Alzheimer's Orange County. And today's topic we are very excited about because it is so needed at this time, talking about how the stress of being a caregiver affects us always, but even more in this unprecedented time of the past few months that we've all been dealing with. And I'm very happy to be joined by Mr. Ben Allen, one of our programs and education specialists here at Alzheimer's Orange County. But before we dive in today, I do want to thank our sponsor, Bridge Home Health and Hospice. And excuse me for a second. They are a wonderful community sponsor of ours. They're committed to providing the highest quality home-based patient care in an atmosphere of respect for human dignity. They have highly trained clinicians and therapists, and they really strive to exceed the expectations of their patients and families and caregivers and physicians. And so if you know anyone who is in need of having help in the home or who has a life-limiting illness, or who may be open to learning about how hospice can benefit them, please do contact Heather Reed. Her number is up on the screen, 714-743-0803. If you have any questions or to schedule and the eligibility of benefits. And again, we're so thankful for their sponsorship. It allows us to bring you these types of presentations here today. And so, hi, Ben.
Hi, Melissa.
Welcome. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day.
It is a beautiful day.
Looking forward to this conversation very much.
Me too. So yeah, this is an unprecedented time, as we keep hearing, right? And even more so for those of us who, you and myself included, who are caring for a loved one during this time. And our loved ones happen to both have Alzheimer's disease, but we may have other people caring for others out there with other conditions as well, memory related or not, and it's definitely been a challenging time.
It certainly has, and yes, it doesn't matter what our loved one's situation is. The challenges of caregiving are great, and these days there's just so much information, and as we sit at home, as many of us are, and see recommendations, it can really be overwhelming. I've seen so many programs, webinars, and articles about caregiving and how we care for someone during the age of COVID-19 and how to care for ourselves. And just the recommendations on caring for ourselves can be overwhelming. I saw one article that was so long, by the time I finished it, I felt like taking a nap.
Yeah.
So that's not my goal today. I hope that we can talk about a few things that I think are really important and really, for me, have been very helpful, and I hope will be helpful for our viewers as well.
Good. So maybe we could start off by talking about how this situation has affected you personally as a caregiver, if you don't mind sharing with us.
Yeah, of course. My wife has advanced Alzheimer's. It's been about 11 years since she was diagnosed. She's in a long-term care facility where she's getting great care. But the challenge these days is with the restrictions here in California. There are no visits. What we count as a visit nowadays is more of an observation. We're at least 10, 15 feet away. She's brought out in a wheelchair as she is these days, where I can see her, but I'm on the other side of a wrought iron fence, and she really can't see me, doesn't seem to respond to my voice. She does respond to music. Of course, that's always been one of her favorite things. And so I'll play music from my phone, and I can see that she hears that, she relaxes, and she engages with the music. But it's taken me a while to adjust to this new state. And the first couple of weeks were pretty hard. My emotions were kind of all over the place. How about you, Melissa? What's been the impact for you?
Yeah, so I'm my situation's similar to yours in some ways and different. My mom is also in advanced stages of Alzheimer's disease and very late stage. I happen to live with her. I'm very thankful for that. My father is her full-time caregiver, and my husband and I also live with them and take care of them. But at the beginning of this whole crisis in mid-March, which feels like forever ago, but wasn't that long ago, we decided to kind of move out for a while and kind of limit her exposure as much as possible. There was so much unknown, and there's still so much that's unknown. We thought we would kind of, just press pause for a little bit and separate ourselves. And the longer this happens to go on and still very uncertain, we decided to move back in recently. And I'm very glad to be back there and to be able to help out and see her and take care of her. But again, it introduces that concern again. Every time I leave the house, I worry, am I going to, bring something potentially back in? And I'm sure a lot of caregivers are worried about that as well. So we definitely limit going out only as necessary, but it's a very stressful time. And I don't know about you. I mean, because she's in a later stage, there is the benefit of that. She doesn't worry about what's going on. She doesn't really understand what's going on. Um, but I know for a lot of people, when with loved ones with all abilities, there's definitely kind of pros and cons to the awareness level of our loved ones. So that adds its own stress all on its own. And I know we've been hearing a lot about loved ones being very concerned and wanting to pay attention to the news, 24/7, and we know how stressful that is for us. So it's definitely can be stressful for our loved ones who maybe not have the full picture of what's going on. It's a very difficult time, and so I'm excited to dive into some strategies that we can kind of implement in our own lives, myself included.
Yeah. Anxiety is such a challenge, not just for us, but because our loved ones pick up on that anxiety, whether they're aware of the basis for it or not. They
Absolutely.
still feel that because the emotions and our body language are so important. It's not necessarily the words we use as we talk about in our caring conversations presentation. Our body language is really important. So we need to be aware of what's happening with ourselves, because that's going to be reflected in how we come across. So taking care of ourselves is important.
Absolutely.
The tough thing for me, and actually this goes back, almost 11 years since her diagnosis. Everybody wants to suggest something. Oh, I read this, or my doctor says this, and it's just overwhelming. And I recognize that people are well-meaning. They want to help. They want to provide some constructive ideas, but it's more than I can handle. And so I smile and say, thank you, I'll look into that. There's only so much I can do. And that's been important for me as a caregiver to recognize that.
Absolutely.
So what I've found, and I'll just jump right in here.
Please do.
We often talk about how important it is to care for ourselves. And most of us think, well, how in the world do I do that when I have all these other things that I need to get done? And so just hearing that suggestion, you need to take care of yourselves. You have to put on your own oxygen mask first before you can help someone else. Or another great phrase, and these are good, is you can't pour from an empty cup. And that's absolutely true. But
Absolutely.
how do I do that? I just don't. Some days I just can't think to do anything more.
Yeah.
So I want to be real clear that our goal today is not to say this is what you should do. I don't want anybody to tell me what I should do. That's my decision. And yet I think there are some things that as we think about them can really make a difference. So here's what I've found as I've read and watched other programs a lot in the last couple of weeks, I came across an article from the University of Arizona on caregiving that was really helpful for me. And it was simple, it was short, and there's only 5 points or 5 strategies. So here they are: 5 ways to care for yourself in challenging times. Empower, connect, move, create, and breathe. And I'm going to talk about each of these. And let me say right at the beginning that breathe is at the end, but in many ways it should be at the top because it underlies everything else that we do. And so, but we'll talk more about breathing as we get through these 5 strategies. So let's talk about empower. We empower ourselves. That's the key. We recognize that there are things we can change. I read recently that Martin Luther King Jr. said, the definition of power is the ability to effect change and accomplish purpose. Power is the ability to effect change and accomplish purpose. I really like that. We recognize that there are things that we can't change. We probably can't change the course of the disease that our loved ones have. These are incurable diseases so far. Until we find a cure, they are going to continue to progress, and we're not going to change that. We can change the way we think. And this has been especially helpful for me. Several years ago, maybe 7, 8 years ago, as we were getting into a stage with my wife's disease where things were getting really tough, I recognized that I needed to see a counselor. I needed help. I wasn't doing well. And even though today there are times I'm up and down, especially with the unknowns of COVID-19, at that time, I was just not thinking clearly. And so my counselor helped me to understand where my thinking was distorted. And one of those areas is that I can change some things. I can change the way I view a situation. I could change and recognize the fact that I needed help. And part of effecting that change was actually following through and making an appointment and going to see my counselor, and then following up. And for a period of about 6 months, I saw him every 2 or 3 weeks, and it ultimately really made a big difference. Still today, I have to recognize that there are times that my thinking is distorted. I'm leaping ahead to the future that I don't know how to deal with. And I can't know how to deal with it because it hasn't happened yet. So I empower myself. And that helps me with my emotions. Because emotions just can overwhelm us, especially when we feel overwhelmed to begin with. And often those emotions lead to anger, frustration, and anger. And I saw a really great illustration about anger, and we've got a slide on this. Let's bring that up, and we'll just talk about anger.
It is up. I don't know if you can see it, but
yeah, now I can see it. Thank you.
Okay.
So thinking of it as an iceberg. When you see an iceberg, what we see is above the surface. And let's just describe that as anger. That's what presents. But underlying that anger, under the surface, are a whole lot of other emotions like grief and embarrassment and depression and just feeling overwhelmed, being sleep deprived, being frustrated that I can't do the things that I would really like to do to take care of myself. Example, in these days of physical distancing, I can't go out and play tennis. And tennis has been one of the biggest parts of my self-care program. Can't do that. And so I have to find other ways to get physical activity. And we'll come back to that in terms of moving. But the iceberg helped me to see that I might be feeling anger and frustration, but there are other emotions that have triggered that have led to that. And when I recognize those emotions, then I can say, okay, now I'm beginning to understand this. I'm beginning to get it in perspective. And embarrassment, depression, grief, the grief that we feel as caregivers when we recognize the losses, the loss of relationship, the loss of intimacy on many levels. And that hurts. So when I see those emotions, those may come out as frustration and anger, but when I recognize them, I can get them in perspective and I can begin to relax. I can breathe, slow down. And that helps me just tremendously. I will never be able to get everything done that may be on my list. It is overwhelming to be a caregiver. And so when I recognize that, I empower myself. And that's the key. Empower yourself. Find something that you can change. And number one is how we think about things, relax, breathe, and it helps us to get things in perspective.
Thanks for sharing that. I know this calls to mind for me, and more so in the beginning of kind of this sheltering in place and things. I was seeing a lot of, I'm pretty active on social media and things like that. I was seeing a lot of posts about this is the time to be really productive and, write that novel, clean your house out, all those things. And there's nothing wrong with doing those things. But I think for me and for a lot of my friends, I know those messages, I think were a little bit disheartening at times if you felt like you didn't have quite the motivation to accomplish all of your lifelong goals during this time of a global crisis, that you were somehow failing. And I think sometimes just the simple act of getting out of bed and taking a shower and doing even one or two things for yourself or for another person that day, that should be considered a win. Just being able to function during this time is difficult enough without kind of the added stress of feeling like you need to be very productive during this time. So I just wanted to kind of mention that, that, we get a lot of messages during this time from very well-meaning people, but it can feel very overwhelming, especially in the midst of taking care of someone else, feeling like you need to be a superhero, and just getting by is okay. And we're obviously here to help as well. Our helpline is in the comments. And I just want to encourage anyone watching, reach out, comments, questions. We want this to be interactive. That's why we do them via Facebook Live. So we definitely want to hear from you in ways that you're taking care of yourself as well. So number one, empower yourself. Are we on to number two?
All right, number two.
Great.
So number two is connect. With the social distancing, this is even more of a challenge. Caregiving to begin with is isolating. So many people just don't understand, or they don't understand how to relate to us and our loved ones. And so there's this natural gulf that comes between us and our friends and other family members. So reaching out to connect with someone, whether it's using the latest technology. A lot of us are using Zoom for video calls, and that can be really helpful. Sometimes that can be a bit overwhelming in itself. So it may be just picking up the phone, making a phone call. It may be just leaving a message, of course, if people aren't answering their phones, but just to leave that message, or to send a text, or to write a note by hand.
What a concept.
Actually did that. But that can be so satisfying to reach out in any way and connect with other people. Support groups have been an important part of maintaining connection. And I've been in several support groups over the last 11 years. Of course, nowadays, our support groups aren't meeting in person, but we have online support groups, and we have information about that on our Facebook page and on our website as well, where people can connect, have the opportunity to talk with others and check in and learn from each other and share successes, things that we've found that work and may help other people. So connect with somebody every day. It makes a difference. So number three. Number three is move. Move in any way. Walking, of course, that's been the go-to for me to get out and walk. I like to go birding, just going out to be out in the open and enjoy the landscape and occasionally see an interesting bird is just a pleasure. But any kind of movement, gardening has been really satisfying. Just being up and down and moving around and going to get this and that and making a difference in my world has really been helpful. Just my daily warm up and stretching makes me feel better. When I do that first thing in the morning, I just feel better and I breathe better. That helps me to relax and to breathe. How about you, Melissa? What kind of physical activity are you getting?
Well, I was a little bit disheartened at the beginning of this because I've been going to the gym quite a bit, 2, 3 times a week, and I really enjoy that form of exercise. And so when it began, even before gyms were closed, it began to feel kind of unsafe. I didn't really want to be surrounding myself with a bunch of people using the same machines, so we kind of strayed away from the gym. So my husband's a big runner, so I've been reluctantly running a bit, but I'm actually getting better. I haven't run in quite a while, but I ran a couple miles yesterday without stopping for the first time, and that felt really good. And he was even very impressed, which felt even better. So we'll alternate walking and running. We'll do some videos like YouTube yoga, things inside. But as much as I love exercise, and I genuinely do, I'm actually a physical therapist by nature, so I think I have to love it. But I do. But being inside all day, I found just being inside and working from home and being in that same place all day, it's actually very exhausting. And I find myself lacking motivation a lot of days to get outside or to do something active. But I never regret it when I do it, even if it's 10 minutes. I just feel like I have energy and I sleep better. So I have to constantly be reminding myself, this is good for you. And you will like this once you just put the clothes on. That's like half the battle. And then, you'll go and do it. And so, yeah, even for somebody like me that loves doing that, it's definitely been a challenge to find some sort of routine or some sort of normalcy. So still working on that. I want to mention one comment from somebody who said, I think when we were talking about breathing, she said, I often forget to breathe and ask for help. I don't want to burden others. And I think that's such a common thing. I forget to breathe all the time. I know when we talk about breathing, it's like, oh, I need to breathe. Like I've been holding my breath almost and not taking full breaths throughout the day if I'm stressed. And even just, taking a minute to take some really deep and cleansing breaths, that it's amazing how much that can change your entire mood and your demeanor. Do you want to mention anything else about that, Ben?
I think I do the same thing as the comment, forget to breathe, especially when I'm into something that I'm really passionate about, like programs like this. I just get wound up and I start talking faster and my voice goes up. And if I'm with my loved one, that's communicating attention that isn't productive for her and certainly isn't for me as well. When I recognize that, stop, take a breath, makes a big difference. You mentioned running with your husband, having a partner to do something to help you follow through on that commitment really, really makes a big difference. So I'd be interested in hearing from some of our viewers, other kinds of ways other activities that people are finding that are helpful in this time of physical distancing. Um,
Yep, absolutely. Keep the
lots,
comments coming.
lots, lots of programs, as you mentioned, the video yoga. Um, I've done a little bit of yoga. I did one exercise program, and it's designed for older people, which I identify with. Um, and I'm thinking, I'm exhausted. I don't know how anybody else can do this.
Yeah,
Um, of course, is led by a young person, clearly in better condition than I am. But it really helped me relax and feel better. So
good.
uh,
Glad.
any kind of movement. Now the research says the more vigorous, the better, and 20 to 30 minutes a day, 5 or 6 times a week is the ideal. Um, Exercising for hours or every single day isn't necessarily going to get you any more benefit. 20 to 30 minutes, 5 to 6 times a week is really the optimum. But the cardiovascular kind of exercise to get your heart beating, get blood pumping to your head, helps you relax, helps your brain function better. So I see we have a comment, walking my dog around the neighborhood. Um, Having an animal that needs to move is a good motivation.
Perfect.
Yeah, very good.
Great.
So we've had empower yourself, connect with others, and move. And the fourth one is create. So this is a pretty broad category. Um, any kind of art, any expressive art like painting, and many of our viewers are probably familiar with our art program, Memories in the Making, where we help to facilitate people with dementia doing art. It makes a difference for them. And the same kind of activity is good for us. Anything that allows us to express ourselves, whether it's through art, through painting or sculpture. For me, I've found in this time, just refinishing some furniture was incredibly satisfying. I took these old wooden TV trays. They were just in terrible shape, but I could tell underneath there's some beautiful heartwood walnut, just beautiful wood grain. I thought, I can bring these back. And I sanded them down and applied a coat of stain, and they came out so beautifully that just felt good. So that was a process of creating for me that was really, really great. And even now, I look at them and I'm pleased. I have my laptop on one of them right now, and
Ah.
wonderful thing. Um, Organizing, cleaning out the garage or a
Mm,
cupboard, all of that, it's creating order from chaos. And those are inherently good for ourselves. And we're talking about things that are good for ourselves. It reminds me of an activity in one of our workshops, Savvy Caregiver. Um, I took that several years ago, but one of the greatest things about it was an exercise where we had to think of what we would do if we were given some increment of time.
mm,
And we literally drew pieces of paper out of a hat and opened it up and, oh, I've got 15 minutes. What would I do with 15 minutes? Not to do any errands, not to get something checked off my list, but what would I do that's inherently uplifting and investing in my well being? I can go sit in the sun and breathe.
mm.
Um, Maybe I get some ice cream. We recommend ice cream as a distraction for our loved ones when things aren't going well. But that can be good for us. It's a comfort food, and of course, I don't want to overdo it. Many of us find it really easy to rely on food these days
Mhm.
for comfort, but an occasional special treat that can be really satisfying. So whatever that increment of time, if I had 2 hours, what would I do? What would you do, Melissa, if you had 2 hours? You could do anything you want for yourself.
Well, yesterday I had 8 hours because I took the day off work,
Yeah.
and it was actually really wonderful. I had no plans starting out the day, but I sent a couple letters I'd been meaning to send for an embarrassingly long amount of time that I won't say. I sent a package to a friend. I busted out my guitar, which I hadn't played in quite a while, and that felt really good. I played for a long time. Yeah, I think just even thinking about what you would do is a great exercise, like you're mentioning, because especially as caregivers, we don't often think about what we would do for ourselves. And so even just to do that simple exercise of, okay, if I had 15 minutes, what would I do? If I had half an hour, 2 hours, even a day. And even if you don't know if you're going to have that time coming up, I think coming up with those things that you have loved, once upon a time and maybe not had a chance to do in a while, I think that's really important. And then hopefully it will encourage you to try to find a way to find that time, even if it's only 5 or 10 minutes. And how much that joy from that time can last you the rest of the day, that energy of just really taking some time to set aside. So yeah, I think that's a great exercise. Someone mentioned they enjoy flower and vegetable gardening. Great time to garden, get out in the yard, springtime. She also said she's encouraging her husband to walk from the front of the house to the back several times a day. Get exercise in the store. I know we're all trying to rush around the store to not stay in there for too long, so that can definitely be a form of movement as well. But yeah, I think it's important to find ways to create and do things that we love. And I love that you were able to refurnish those, and now you see your work, and that brings you extended joy as well. Whether it's a painting or whatever it is. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that you brought up playing guitar. Any kind of music, whether it's playing an instrument or singing. I've found singing to be one of the best things for me. And it's really helpful when I'm with my wife. Again, she may not know I'm there, but I think she can hear my voice and recognize my voice at some level. And so I know it's satisfying for her. So that's create anything at all. So number 5, breathe. We've been talking about breathing. It's stopping. It's recognizing that I need to stop. Sometimes I will just literally say it out loud. I'll find myself rushing, and I'm thinking, why am I rushing? And I will say out loud, stop. I don't need to do that. Let's slow down. Take a breath. Breathing slowly, breathing rhythmically. Dr. Galindo has mentioned the breathing technique where we breathe in on a count of 4, hold our breath for a count of 4, and then exhale for a count of 4. That's a great exercise. A lot of people have found benefits in meditating, and I've been marginally successful at meditating. My brother meditates for an hour every day.
Oh my goodness.
I tried to do that with him once, and it was really hard. I saw something in an article that I really liked, and it was a micro meditation, 1 minute. Now, if you just take 1 minute, set a timer. The timer makes a difference. And then just breathe. Focus on breathing. If I were to do the 4-count breathing, that's 16 seconds, let's say, and I do that 4 times, that's a minute. That's all it takes. I might repeat a phrase. In some meditations, that's a mantra. Whatever the phrase is that is comforting to us can be helpful. To simply say, I'm okay. I'm going to get through this.
Yeah.
And repeat that over and over as I as I'm relaxing and breathing.
Mm.
Um, so lots of different ways to encourage breathing. Um, I see Adrian has commented, watching live concerts on Facebook. That's a great one.
Mm.
There's so many free programs nowadays. The Philharmonic Society,
Mm.
I get an email every week listing all the different programs that are available for free. Lots of different uh, art opportunities, expressive arts, music and plays, and all of those that just help me relax and slow down and breathe.
Yeah, it's been encouraging to see all the ways that people are providing free music or art tours. I think that's, one of the good things that's come out of this. And I'm such a sucker for the videos where it's a balcony concert, someone playing, and then everyone's like outside of their balconies watching and people, chiming in. Those like get me every time. I just love that. It's this sense of connection when we're not able to be together, but just finding any way that we can to seek out that connection because we're just hardwired for it. And someone else mentioned they've enjoyed reconnecting with friends from the past. I've done the same. I talked to some college friends I hadn't talked to in a long time.
Yeah.
We do have a lot of time on our hands. And again, it's not like you need to go out and be productive and do all these things, but it's not a bad time to reflect and think about, new ways that we can connect with people, because we definitely don't want to just be too isolated on our own. And we need that connection with other people. And so we really need to get creative and figure out how we can do that. And breathing is so important. I read that breathing technique of 4 counts is actually a Navy SEAL technique.
Oh.
And when I read that, so I haven't been on a plane in a while and probably won't be on a plane for a while, but I get pretty nervous on planes.
Mm.
And my husband had his pilot's license at once, so he was very bummed that I didn't want to go flying with him in a tiny plane. But even on big planes, I would do that kind of breathing technique before we took off. I would just inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold, 1, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that, it slows your heart rate. Physiologically, it just, this calm washes over you, and it's so powerful. And it's such a simple thing, and we can all do it. But we just forget about it, and we get to this tense phase. But I encourage everybody watching this to just try that today and see how it feels, and see, how much it really just brings you down a little bit and helps you focus.
Another breathing exercise that I've found really helpful is to take as big a breath as I can. Just big breathe in and then let it out as slowly as possible. And sometimes I can do that for a count of 20.
Mm.
And that's very, very relaxing. So that's it. I found those 5 strategies to be really helpful. Empower yourself, get clear in your thinking, and identify what can I change. Connect with others, move in some way every day, create something, look for beauty, to create something beautiful. That's why just planting flowers has been really, really helpful for me in these last couple of months. And to breathe. And as I said at the beginning, breathing really underlies all of them. We get clear when we stop and breathe. And especially when we're in a situation, perhaps with our loved one, where things are getting a little tense, or maybe more than a little, and anxiety and agitation, and can get pretty hostile. First thing to do is breathe. Take that breath, wait, think about how I want to respond, not just react. And I want to say again that our purpose today is not to say, this is what you should do. I really just wanted to come and share these as a way to think about how we take care of ourselves, and maybe something will resonate. When you hear something, you say, oh yeah, Well, I haven't played the guitar in years. Why did I stop? And you go get that guitar, and I've done that, and you start to play, and boy, does that hurt my fingers.
Mm-hmm.
But the repetition, um, it's just such a good thing. And we have lots of other resources on our website, and we'll put our website and our Facebook page, and those who are watching on Facebook now, lots of information on our Facebook page, um, and lots of other events that you can keep up and join in on other live broadcasts that we do and webinars.
Yes. I just put a link to the article that this presentation is kind of based on, that University of Arizona article that you talked about. It's a great article, as well as the anger iceberg, the real one from the Gottman Institute. You and I both love the Gottman Institute. They have such astute and really thought-provoking articles, and I've read a couple of John Gottman's books. He's a great relationship expert. It's really amazing. And then I linked to our website as well. We have a new blog article out on ways to take care of your mental health. I think we have some pretty great videos and suggestions in there. I put our resources up here. I know it's probably a little small, especially if you're watching on your phone, but I know we've linked to our phone number in the comments. You have our website, alzoc.org. And of course, you know, our Facebook. If you're watching right now, you're already there. We do have online support groups, as you mentioned, Ben. We have a Facebook closed private Facebook group for caregivers that you can request to join. And, you know, we'll be back again, you and I, a week from now, talking about ways to connect and communicate with our loved ones. And we welcome everyone back to join us again for that. We also have a webinar next week on Wednesday. And Dr. Miriam Galindo, who's done sessions like this with me before, she's going to be talking about building resiliency as caregivers. And I think that's going to be a really, really impactful webinar. And I'm very excited to learn from her as well. Did you have anything else to add, Ben?
That's it. Well, let me just mention Helpline. Our Helpline is staffed, and our Helpline specialists are available to talk to people for any reason, whether it's just a simple question or a really challenging situation and you're just not sure how to deal with that. Give us a call, and we can help walk through those issues and maybe come up with some strategies to address the situation.
Absolutely. And I want to thank everyone once again for viewing with us, and we thank Bridge Home Health and Hospice for their generous sponsorship. And thank you, Ben, for spending your morning with me.
Thank you, Melissa. It was a real joy for me.
All right, we'll see you all next time. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day, everyone. Bye-bye.